Alright guys, this is going to be a fairly simple approach. So you can see I have the thumbnail in the background there. I've dimmed it, turned the opacity down on the layer, and the proportions were actually close enough to where I can just create the line art on top of it. I can just create the line art on top of it, and it's pretty accurate. So there was only one thing that my client wanted to change, which was they wanted him to face forward just a little bit. So that was a very easy fix, just turn his torso a little bit forward. But here I am going in, and I'm going to do the sketch a lot more detailed than I did in the previous stuff, because eventually I'm going to use these lines as blueprints to create selections. Because this entire character is blue, I will be painting this in black and white because, I mean, I could basically paint every image in black and white, but I like to use color because it forces me to practice and learn and understand color. But this was a rush job. Like, I had to get this done in less than a week. So whenever I have to do something really fast, like it has to get done, I tend to work in black and white because it's so fast. When you work in grayscale, it's just values. All you really have to think about is the value of whatever you're painting and light and shadow, and maybe texture. You don't really have to think about texture. That's something you can leave for the very last because form is more important. So it's just base value and light and shadow. And if you don't have to think about color relations, then, it saves up so much energy and time and thought process from your brain. Because otherwise you have to think, okay, here's the balance light, so the light is going to look like this, and then the color is going to look like this, and then it's just so much to keep in mind all at the same time. So because it was a rush job, and because the character only had essentially one color and two different hues within that color, so it's blue, and then it's a lighter blue and a darker blue, I opted to paint this in black and white just to get it done as fast as I can. But I am using the same technique as I always have, because something that Smite seems to really like is having those really sharp edges everywhere. Like, everything has this perfect silhouette. So to do that, I create basically a silhouette for almost everything, and I turn that into a layer. And what that lets me do is I can lock the transparency of that layer and only paint with inside that silhouette. And I think that's a really quick way to paint. I am going a little bit overboard here, I think, by making every single... You can see how I have a lot of layers at the moment. Every single color at the moment is its own layer. So you don't have to be this particular about it, really. I could have saved time by doing a little bit less, I think. But it does actually speed up the time as well, because you don't have to go in and be really picky about your edges at the end. It saves up time from the cleanup phase of your painting. So when you do a painting traditionally, or maybe normally, at least the way I started out, was very messy. You just paint and paint and paint, and every layer is just build up. There's no structure to it. It's just you make another layer, you do a few strokes, and then another layer, and do another few strokes. But this way, it's very designed. It's very made on purpose, kind of thing. Every layer has its purpose. And when you can do these silhouette layers and then lock the transparency of that layer, you can paint inside that layer and not have to worry about the edges. So it's like you worry about the edges first as opposed to last. And it just really saves up time when you go in and you start blocking in values, I think. Because you can use a big round brush, for example, a big soft round brush, to just force the form in there really quick. So the final painting time for this, I think, was 10 hours or something like that. So 2 days, and then 1 day for the thumbnails. So in total, I spent 3 days on this painting. Okay guys, let me just show you how I colored this from black and white. So first of all, we need to turn all of these layers back to grayscale. So I'm just gonna select them one by one and open the hue and saturation slider, which is Control U on your keyboard, or Command U if you're on a Mac. Let's see. I was lucky I still had this file actually. This is why it's good to save in increments. You can see up here it's labeled 0, 1, and I have 4 increments of this file just in case. Let's see. Okay, so let's say you've done this. You've done this in black and white, and you want to color it. And what you can do is, of course, create a color layer. This is not the method that I normally use, but let's see. Yeah, this is fine. So you could create a color layer, and it would help if it was actually color. And my touch was off. There we go. And you can color like this. Now you can use the slider to, you know, get it right and all that. But a problem with this is that you color everything the same color, so you know, the shadow, the midtone, and the highlight all have the same color. And of course you can go in and you can, you know, be picky about it, and maybe you want the highlights to be a little bit purple, and you can go in and kind of wash over the highlights and nothing else, and it just doesn't look very nice. At least I don't think so. So I have a better way of doing it, which is using adjustment layers, which you can open at the bottom right here if you see in my screen. If you click this half circle icon, you get selection or the, adjustment layers. And I like to use color balance, and gradient map. So now we have a gradient map. I'm going to turn it off for a second. You can see how all of these, no matter which one I create, it's going to have a mask layer here, and we're going to be using that. So first of all, I'm going to hold down Control. Let's get rid of that. Hold down Control and click on the thumbnail. Oops. Control and Shift. Sorry. Control and Shift, and click on the thumbnails in my layer hierarchy down here. And what that does is, as you can see, it marquees everything in that layer, and because I'm holding down Shift, I can add onto it. Actually, I don't need that. Oh my god. Let's start over. Okay, here we go. Selected the wrong layer. So just do this. Everything, the whole character selected. And now I can just, I wonder if, no, that was, I'm just going to fill this with black. Whoops, I have to make sure I select the layer. Oh, right. You cannot do it while the layer is hidden. My bad. And it's the wrong thing. So everything that's white is going to be affected by this layer. Everything that's black is not going to be affected. So I'm just going to Control I and inverse the image, so that now we have all of him being affected by this layer. So I'm going to open this up. Not that way. I'm going to open this up. Oh my god. Sorry. Here. And let's see, because he's blue, but honestly you can do this with pretty much anything. Let's say, for example, that his body would be, I don't know, orange. Then all I would have to do was not select his body and create a separate gradient map layer for that. Anyway, he's blue. So let's see. I'm gonna make sure that all the shadows are very saturated and dark blue. It's just going to be shades of blue, really, but let's see. Let's make the mid-tone a little bit desaturated, but still blue. I could possibly move it more towards purple. And the upper spectrum of the midtones, you know, even more. Actually, way more. Desaturated and brighter. You can, you know, play around with this and do whatever you feel like, really. But I'm going to make it up there. And you can move these around to like really perfect it. So, for example, because this will mess with your values. You can see how, basically what I'm doing, I'm selecting everything in this value range right here, and I'm adding a color to it. So I'm adding a color and a value to it. I'm adding both. So I can actually drag this up and turn all of my midtones into these dark shadow areas, and vice versa. I can turn all my shadows into a very bright midtone. So I'm going to find a nice balance here. Something like that works, I think. A little bit more highlight, maybe. I'm going to turn the highlight into a sort of teal, maybe. No, that doesn't work. Should just do this for a little bit. Let's say that's fine. We're happy with that. Okay, cool. Now comes the boring process. I'm going to link this to every single layer. So I'm going to hold down Alt and click in between the layers, drag it down, hold down Alt, click, drag it down, hold down Alt, click, so that everything, not that layer, so that everything gets affected by it. And let's see. So you might be wondering, why didn't I just merge the entire, you know, why didn't I just merge everything and then do just one layer? Well, at this point I still want to keep the layers separate in case I want to go in and fiddle around with the edges or render some few areas. So it's only for that. Anyway. So now everything's done. I could merge it if I want to. You know, click Control E, Control E, Control E, you know, merge it down. But I'm only going to do that for everything that I want to be blue. So these guys, let's see, that guy, not that, and that. So, like I said before, I'm gonna change the color because I think I need to explain a little bit further. Let's pretend that he is in fact orange. So I'm just gonna select the orange hue, something like that, and the highlights can actually remain blue because, you know, he's got blue highlight and it's a nighttime image, but we want to get some orangey color in there, I suppose. Something like that. And that's good. I'm going to duplicate this and apply it to his other skin area. And okay, now his hand is blue, but whatever. Oop. Link. There. So what I want you to get away from this is essentially just this, that you can assign any value in your black and white image to any color and value. So rather than the color layer, which is one color, no value change to everything, this you can actually go in and specify. It can be like, okay, I want my highlights to be red, and my midtones to be this kind of weird green, and I want my shadows to be this really neon pink because reasons. Like that. There we go. Isn't that a beautiful arm? But see how this, you know, changes? Because if you know anything about color, color is never the same everywhere. You know, it changes based on bounce light and what light is being hit on, what the surrounding is. You know, so this is a great way to color efficiently and fast without getting that boring color layer look. It's just faster because once you're done with the color layer, you have to go in and repaint a bunch of areas with new color. And with this method, you can just get it done in one layer. once this is done, you can even take it further and open color balance, which is Control B on your keyboard. And you can see here you have shadows, midtones, and highlights. So obviously these sliders will affect the shadows, midtones, or highlights. So let's say we want the shadows to be more blue, and we want the midtones to be more yellowish, and I want the highlights to be, I don't know, green. And you can see how it's affecting the whole arm, not just the highlights, but it's affecting the highlights the most. It's kind of like a fade off. So it's selecting all the highlights, all the highest values, and then it falls off in selection. So it's like a gradient or something. And that is how I color this image. And after this is done, you know, I'll just keep on painting. And oh yeah, you can alter your gradient map too if you need to. So you click it, you can tell it's selected by this circle, or this square rather, that's around it. And you just take a nice brush and you paint with black and white. No other color will work, only black and white. And like I said, white will affect the layer, black will delete it. So I'm going to take black and I'm going to paint out this area. So now this is only affecting his torso and this, I forgot what this is called. Headdress thing. Anyway, like so. So you can customize this layer mask to fit whatever you need. Anyway, I think you get the point. Back to the video. You can see me flip the image very often, and I hope it's not too bothersome, but what that does is it makes you see the image in a new perspective. Because your brain, like if you stare at an image long enough, after a while your brain kind of fills in the gaps. So where there is a problem, your brain will sort of adjust it for you in your head, and you can't see it. It's this really weird optical illusion kind of effect where, you know, your face could be totally mangled, like one eye is higher than the other, but when you stare at it long enough, you will forget that detail. Your brain will just be like, no, that detail isn't there. It looks fine. And then you flip it, and your brain has to register that as a new image. And all of a sudden, all of these problems that you had pop out and kind of like knives in your eyes. You're just like, oh god, what was I doing? So I have it turned to a hotkey. I have it set to a hotkey where I can flip the image very often back and forth just to make sure that everything reads both ways. Because at the end of a painting, it should read no matter which way you look at it. So for example, if I have the hand sticking forward on the right side, it works. If I have the hand sticking forward on the left side, it still works. That's very important. And the old master painters, before, way before digitalization, they would have a mirror that they would use to look at. So they would start making a painting, and then they would hold the painting up to a mirror just to see how it looked reversed, so that they could make sure that everything was right. And from here on out, it's just rendering. There are no really special techniques or anything. Just you gotta know your light, your forms, your values, your texture. I guess the only thing that I do is I use the pen tool later to get some perfect shapes, which is good. If you can't get it with your brush or your lasso tool, you can use the pen tool if you want to get those perfect circles or perfect curves. But other than that, yep, that's it. So I'm going to leave you here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this little video, and I'll see you soon. And that's it. Thanks for watching.